Hi, everyone. We've set up this Being an Engineer podcast as an industry knowledge repository, if you will. We hope it'll be a tool where engineers can learn about and connect with other companies, technologies, people, resources, and opportunities. So make some connections and enjoy the show.
A lot of times, sales engineers defer to salespeople in terms of their accounts, how they help their customers. So my recommendation is own it. You own the business as much as a salesperson.
Hello and welcome to the Being an Engineer podcast. Today we are speaking with Ramzi Marjaba. Ramzi holds a bachelor's degree in engineering as well as a master's degree in engineering management. He started his career in software development and eventually made his way into the sales engineer world. He's currently a senior sales engineer with Keysight Technologies and also runs the website WeTheSalesEngineers.com, where he helps sales engineers develop the skills to succeed. Ramzi, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to the show.
It is my pleasure. That's a better bio than I would have written for myself, so thank you.
Maybe I should start freelancing as a bio writer.
You should. That's a very good. I'm going to need to take a copy of that when we're done.
No problem. All right. Well, Ramzi, first question. This is the same one I ask everyone. What made you decide to become an engineer? I mean, I know you've kind of gone towards the sales side of engineering, but originally, what was it that made you think, yeah, that's the path for me?
My dad, in short, in long. So I'm raised in Lebanon. I'm Lebanese originally. I lived there all my life, or most of my life, and a lot of the work outside when you want to live in Lebanon, it doesn't make enough money for almost anything. I wanted to be a physical education guy or a physical trainer, but there wasn't any money in that. So my dad guided me towards computers, mainly because he saw me playing games. He said, Ramzi, you should be a computer engineer. I thought, okay, I'll make games. Turns out it has nothing to do with each other, but I'm glad I went into engineering. So
that's funny. All right. Well, let's talk about being a sales engineer. What is a sales engineer and how is that role different from your, kind of your typical standard sales role?
That most people don't understand, don't even know that sales engineering exists. So sales engineering is the process of solving a business problem through technology. Now, in the mechanical world, you might have a sales engineer who's actually a salesperson, especially when there's physical hardware, like a wind turbine or something like that. Someone is selling it. They're usually sales engineers, but they're salespeople doing the engineering part as well. But if you go more into the software side, so if you sell any equipment to design that wind turbine, the salesperson is the person trying to find the leads, get the customer to meet with them. The sales engineer is the one who comes in and figures out what the problem is, offers a solution, shows the value of that solution to the customer, tries to convince them that their solution is better than anybody else's, and then the salesperson comes back and tries to close the deal. So there's a bit of difference, but we're all part of the sales team. We have the same goal, which is, in theory, it should be to help the customer, but a lot of times in reality, it ends up being just hoping to close the deal.
Well, I really like the way you defined a sales engineer. That is solving a business problem using technology. That's a really clean, concise way to describe it. Anyway, it helps me to understand what that means. What are some sales skills that engineers who have maybe no interest in becoming a sales engineer can benefit from in their engineering role?
It's interesting because when I went into engineering, I wanted to do engineering because I didn't want to talk to people. And now I realized that one of the most important skills that engineers in general, right now, anybody should have is the ability to communicate, the ability to take a complex idea and make it simple, ability to convince someone to do something. So I kind of classified it into two tiers. One set of skills to do the job, one set of skills to find the next job, if you will. So if you want to do the job, you have to be able to have communication skills. We write emails all the time. We create reports all the time. We're trying to convince someone of something all the time. So it's having the ability to communicate something clearly, unlike what I'm doing right now. But being able to actually be concise and get your point across as fast as possible, that's a great skill. There's also influence and persuasion, which sounds negative, but what we're trying to do is help someone make a decision in the end. So, like, Aaron, if I need something from you as your employee, I kind of need to convince you why it's useful for you, right? More than it's useful for me. I don't want to raise because I need it for my family. I want to raise because I've achieved all these things for you, and I've earned it, right? And then, generally speaking, every engineer has that problem solving. As sales engineers, I mentioned earlier, we solve business problems through technology. And I talk to so many engineers who tell me, well, I solved the problem for myself. I solved this problem for myself. When I ask them, how did that help the company? It's like, oh, it didn't. It just helped me. All right. So you didn't solve a business problem. You just solved an annoyance for yourself. If you can solve multiple annoyances for your entire team, now you're solving a business problem. Right. So do that. You advance in your career. Go ahead.
Yeah, I love that you brought up communication. It's one of the answers that I hear so often on this show. I'm always asking people, what are the skills that the most talented, most productive engineers have? And in the beginning, when I first started this show, naively, I suppose, I expected to hear answers like, oh, they're really good at CAD, or they remember all the thermodynamics equations, or, something technical like that. But honestly, by far the most common answer I get is they're really good communicators. And I'm sure as a sales engineer, you have so much opportunity to practice that skill that it probably pays dividends.
Well, I started practicing that skill when I was more in a support role. And I realized that when I noticed two extremes. There's one person who didn't do any work and took the easiest tickets, but took a lot of them and marketed himself all the time. My manager loved him. And on the other extreme, I worked with two of my friends who I would see them. They're messaging me at 8:00 at night. They come in late, but they pick their own tickets for support stuff and they just work on it. They grind. They take one ticket. The other guy's taking 5, but it's much harder and no one knows about it. My boss thought that they were not working. They thought they were lazy, and he was on their case. Like, why are you coming in at 10? Why are you leaving at 3? Well, because I'm going back to work at 5 and working till 10:00 at night, right? So the fact that that person was able to market himself, he got the promotions, he got the best gigs where we had to go travel to customer sites. I was sent to, no offense to Roanoke, but I was sent to Roanoke, Virginia, and he was sent to New Orleans where there was a lot more fun stuff to do. So he got to pick wherever he wanted, where I was sent places. So the fact that he was able to communicate and market himself, even though in my humble opinion, which if you know me, it's not very humble, he was the worst support engineer on the team. That made all the difference for my manager.
Well, I'm seeing your skill in communicating already, because that was such a perfect illustration telling that story. It's easy to talk, and sometimes people take something away from it, sometimes they don't. But when you can tell a story that illustrates a point, that's so powerful.
That's the majority of my work as a sales engineer or people in sales. We have to tell stories because even though we like to think that we're fact-based, we make decisions based on fact. Most people make decisions based on emotion. Fact has to back it up. But if there's me and someone else telling you the same exact thing, one through just listing stuff off a data sheet and the other one telling you through a story of how it helped them and their customers, 10 times out of 10, or 9 times out of 10, someone would pick the person who told the story because they can build a vision. They can now see themselves as part of their story. Whereas someone telling facts, now you're asking whoever you're talking to make up their story in their mind, and you're just making it harder.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, making them work more. All right. Well, who can become a sales engineer, and why might one consider pursuing that role?
So anyone who has thick skin, who enjoys talking to people, you don't have to be an extrovert. I am very much an introvert, and I still enjoy that role. But it takes someone, I like to engage in one-on-one conversation, so I enjoy that part of it. But basically anyone who enjoys talking to people, who likes to understand the business a little bit more than just the technical, because everything we do in technology is related to business. if there wasn't a business behind it, no one would create anything unless you're in university and you have an R&D fund, which is, again, I guess, a business. But you have to have thick skin because you're going to be dealing with people, whether it's customers, whether it's salespeople, whether it's product managers, project managers. There's a lot of dealing with people, and one should pursue it if they want to learn business. But, and I'm going to say this bluntly, the closer you are to the customer, the more money you make. So if one of your interests is making more money, taking care of your family, and doing something that's not repetitive, I'm not doing the same thing twice in a row. So if you want to do that, you should look into sales engineering.
You mentioned earlier that you went into engineering because you didn't want to talk to people. I'm curious, how did you make that transition? Is there not as much talking to people as you thought there might be, and therefore it's okay being a sales engineer? Or did you just learn how to talk to people and become more comfortable with that?
First off, I fell into sales engineering by accident. I applied to a systems engineering role. So you'll notice that sales engineers have many different titles. But for me, I applied to a systems engineering role, and turns out that was a sales engineering role, and I got the job. But even before I accepted the job, I realized that if I want to move anywhere, move up, move sideways in my career, there's going to be a lot of talking in general, a lot of communication, a lot of relationship building anyways. And like I spent 4 years at a company called Alcatel-Lucent in support. So I was always talking to customers. Not only was I talking to customers, I was talking to customers when they were the most pissed off. No one calls support when they're happy.
Right.
So I'm already talking to customers. I'm already talking to teammates, trying to convince them to help me or to do something. I'm talking to my boss, trying to convince him to give me a raise. I'm doing all that. And I found that being a sales engineer, well, as I was going through the interview process, I get to still talk to customers. But also if I work overtime, which usually as engineers, we don't get paid overtime. If I work overtime and I help sell more, I help solve more problems for my customers, I get recognition, I get rewarded as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'm wondering how technical do you think you need to be to succeed as a sales engineer? Is that the most important skill?
So the more technical you are, it could be easier for you or faster for you to sell something. The skill that is required more than being technical is being able to relate that technical information to your customer in a way that they'd understand. So I might be talking to you and you might be very technical, which means I have to be technical. And if I'm not that technical, I'm going to have to bring in someone who's technical, which delays the sales process, delays you being able to make a decision. And if you're in a hurry to make a decision now, then you might just move on to the next vendor. So being technical is very important, but being able to relate that information to someone who's not technical. Let's say you're not that technical. And if I'm mentioning all the jargon that engineers would, and you just glaze over, then I'm doing a bad job as well. So it's a balance of technical communication. There's I think of it as a 3-axis diagram where you have human skills, technical skills, and soft skills or sales skills. So you have to have a balance of all three to be able to actually make a sale. Because if part of the human skills, if I make you feel dumb because I am smartest person in the room, you're not going to like me. You're not going to buy from me. If I don't answer your questions, you're not going to like me. You're not going to buy from me. If I lie to you, these are all things that we have to balance together and adjust the way we communicate. For example, when we first started, I asked you, your audience is mostly mechanical, right? So most of my examples are talking about you, and my experience is networking. So I had to shift my conversation style to maybe not bring in networking examples, other than this one, obviously. But, shift the way you talk so people can understand. It's the same thing with your boss. If you want a raise, you have to talk their language, not your language. It's always about the other person, right?
Yeah.
How did you make their life easier? If you made their life harder, they're never going to give you a raise. They're hoping you'd leave.
Right. So we've talked a little bit about how sales skills can transfer to an engineering role, right? If you're good with communication, that's something that engineers can certainly use as well. How about the other way around? Are there engineering skills that are transferable into sales?
So the problem solving is a big one. Engineers are known as problem solvers, right? That's our entire existence. We solve problems. So if you can't solve a problem, you're not going to be a good sales engineer. And it's not limited to the technical though. Now you kind of have to debug a human in addition to debugging technology. If someone wants you to solve a problem, like I've had customers come to me and say, "Hey, I want that piece of equipment," right? If I give it to them, then what? Now they're going to go straight to the competitor and say, "I want that piece of equipment." And we're kind of racing to the bottom in terms of pricing. But if they come to me and say, "I want that piece of equipment," and my question is, "Oh, that's interesting. Why are you looking for that piece of equipment? What are you trying to solve?" And now you start a conversation. You're debugging the human. Now you get to solve their actual problem, not just what they think their problem is.
Yeah.
So engineers in like, and I might be generalizing, but it's a positive generalization. We're usually curious. And we're curious about technology. Now we have to be curious about humans. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I really like your term debugging the humans. That's a fun way to put it. So let's say that I'm a new sales engineer, just starting out, right, in my first month or two. What are some common pitfalls that new sales engineers may fall into?
Thinking that you have to solve everything on your own, for one. If you ever meet a group of sales engineers, we're a very helpful bunch. We enjoy helping other people, especially since there aren't that many of us. We think it's like, oh, another person who's joined the brotherhood or sisterhood. Yay, let's work together. So generally speaking, sales engineers, when they first start, they want to solve everything on their own. They don't know how to reach out for questions, especially since a lot of us are remote. I can do my entire job from home. I don't need to see a single person other than customers. But I don't meet other sales engineers, so we don't build that relationship, for one. And two, and that's going to contradict my previous statement about being technical, but focusing too much on the technology and not what problems the technology solves. I've worked with SEs who spent the first 6 months understanding the product deeply. They know everything about it. And when I ask them, why is that important? They don't know the answer. Like, what problem does it solve for your customers? You're focused on your product, not on your customers. Be more customer centric so that you can explain that, hey, this thing can do this for you, which means you're going to save time, money, or reduce risk, like in terms of maintenance or whatever it is. So that's the biggest pitfall I see. Focusing on not focusing on understanding what problems the products solve.
Are there other pitfalls if you kind of take this a step further? Let's say that guys who have been doing this for, 5, 10, 15 years, so they're doing fine, right? They've been in it long enough. They're doing a fine job. But there's that next level, maybe like where you are, Ramzi, like really upper echelon, top tier, doing incredibly well. Are there some pitfalls that some people just never learn to get over that prevent them from moving up into that upper stratosphere area?
Yeah, I mean, whether I'm on the upper echelon is debatable. My wife would say no, but hey, thank you for the compliment. The biggest thing I see is that communication part, that human interaction part. I've worked with a lot of the SEs that I work with have been doing this for 10 years, and they're focused on the technology more than anything else. They can answer anything about the technology, but they can't work with customers very well because the way sales engineers have been treated in the past, and I'm not saying it's their fault, it's just the way they've been treated in the past was more as sales support. So a salesperson goes and meets the customer. They come up with a bunch of questions. They come back to the sales engineer who has to answer these questions. And the sales engineers cannot ask questions of their own. So they're treated more as a resource. But now it's shifting. It's shifting towards more of a consultative way of doing things. So those who have been there for 10 years and want to go to that upper echelon, they're going to have to shift as well and start talking about their customers, what their problems are, what their customers' problems are, and how that technology can help versus just being there to support the salesperson or even the customer when they ask questions. I've had a customer reach out to me and another SE saying, I want to do I want to do this feature. I want to use this feature. Do you have it? My colleague responded immediately, no, we cannot. I followed up right after. Like, why are you looking to do this? And my customer wrote pretty much an essay of why he's looking to do this. And then my colleague, SE, jumped in. It's like, oh yeah, we have this other product that can do this for you. Right? And he's been there for 10 years.
Another great example. It makes me think of our own customers. If I were to ask not just what piece of equipment do you want us to develop, but why do you want us to develop that? What is it you're really trying to achieve here? There are probably, so many missed opportunities that have been there all along these years, and I've just passed them up.
Well, the thing about customers is they do their research. And there's a lot of information on the internet today. But all of it is incomplete, and they kind of have to piece it together themselves. And then they reach out to a salesperson, asking them if they can do this, whatever they thought they wanted. And if the salesperson doesn't take the time to actually understand what their goal is, because what they want isn't necessarily the best thing for them.
Right.
So we have to figure out what is it that you're trying to achieve. And we may not have that for you, but we can build something better for you. And this kind of leads me to the second pitfall is sometimes sales engineers have way too much to learn. So they might not be as much in depth. Like we call it, like, you're a mile wide, inch deep. So they might not have that knowledge to dig in, and they might have to bring in some help from somebody else. But if we can ask those questions, if we can dig deep with the customer, we can take more complete information. If we can't solve it ourselves, we can have help from somebody else to help solve whatever problem that the customer is having. And again, you don't need to do it alone. Right? We're a helpful bunch. Whether you're a regular engineer, like just someone who designs stuff for a living, or someone who talks about designing stuff for a living, like myself.
Right. All right. So you've convinced me, Ramzi. I'm hearing all this wonderful stuff about sales engineers. I'm thinking to myself, I'm done owning a company. I want to jump in and be a sales engineer. Let's say that I'm going to go out and start interviewing. What can I do in my resume to make me attractive as a sales engineer? And hopefully, if I get some interviews, what are some tips to shining the best light on myself that can help me land a job?
So you're already a sales engineer, right? As a business owner, right? You're actually everything, right? You're getting the business, you're getting the customer, trying to solve their problem and providing a solution. But let's say someone who works for you wants you to hire them as your first sales engineer. Can we take that as an example?
Sure. Great. Perfect.
Okay. So the thing I always recommend, like I just came up with this like yesterday, the 3 I's, right? Impact. I can't remember the other 2 I's, but let's start with impact.
I love it already. Okay.
So let's start with impact. When I see resumes, a lot of times they're just job descriptions. Right? I designed stuff with AutoCAD. I did this with Tremble. I did this on a CNC machine. I put turbines together, whatever it is. It's the job description. And the person right next to you in the same job will have the same exact resume. But what did you do with that? What was your impact that made your employer want you to stay? If they did. If you didn't have an impact, then it's going to be hard for you to find a job as a sales engineer. But what was your impact? Did you reduce some process by X%? Did you bring in revenue by Y% or increase revenue by Y%? What was the impact that you've had? Right. So try to think about that. And almost everybody's had an impact in one way, shape, or form. They just don't think about it. So you might need to sit back and ask yourself, like, I have a document that's called resume building questions, where I just ask about these sort of things. If you want, I can make it available for your listeners. But you have to go through thinking about what was your impact, what have you done recently, why should people hire you over somebody else, and that's all in the resume. Right. But let's say, Aaron, you don't have a sales engineer position open, and they want to move somewhere else. Most of the time, resume does not get you a job. You have to be out there connecting with people, meeting people. And there's that saying that I like to think that I came up with, but I know 100 people who came up with it before me. Dig your well before you need it. So even if you're not looking for a job, go out and connect with people. You never know what could happen. We always think like, I want to be loyal to my company. Great. Your company wants to be loyal to you until there's a business problem and they have to let you go. If you're happy, don't go out looking for a job, but still make those connections so when you need a job, go out and get it. Because even if you have the worst resume in the world, if you have a good referral, you're already in. So that's from a resume perspective. Did I answer that part? I'm going to pause here for a second.
Yep. Yeah.
Any questions you want to dig into, or should I move on to the interview?
Let's move on.
All right. So for the interview specifically, again, you have to focus about your impact, but you have to do it through sharing stories. So yesterday I was talking to one of my clients, and he told me the biggest hurdle he has is answering that "tell me about you" questions. And I think, like, at least in my industry, almost everybody asks that question. Not sure why, but do you ask that question in your interviews?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. All right. So in my opinion, and correct me if I'm wrong, you run the business, but when someone asks, well, tell me about you, they're focused more about what have you done with your life? What are you proud of? I want to know a little bit more about yourself. Right. He didn't know what to answer. So we went through some questions like, what are you proud of in your life? What are you proud of? And his response was, well, I'm the middle child of 5 kids and I'm the first one to go to university. All right, cool. So let's dig in a little bit deeper on that. Since you went to university, any of your other siblings decided to follow in your footsteps? Well, I don't know if they decided to follow in my footsteps. Like, all right, but anybody went to university? It's like, yeah, my older sister and my younger sister. Like, all right, so you're proud of the fact that you're the first of 5 kids to go to university, and through your example, kids, your brother and your sisters, older and younger, are trying to emulate what you've done. You've opened the floodgates for your family. So you're helping your family have a better life. Is that accurate? Yeah, that's accurate. Okay, good. All right, so this is something you're proud of in your personal life. What have you made an impact in terms of work? He's like, I was able to go to Haiti, my mother country, and provide humanitarian aid while overseas. I'm like, all right, well, that's your story, man. Tell me about yourself. Right there. So we need to think about beyond just the things that we've done in our lives. In this story, he's showing that he's the first of 5 kids who've never been to university. His entire family chain, never been to university. He was able to make it to university. He overcame obstacles. And when he overcame obstacles, he was able to use that in a positive light by helping other people out. And he wants to become a sales engineer. So the last thing he has to say is, because I know the value of helping other people, I want to become a sales engineer to help customers make informed decisions about the purchasing that they're making. So it went from go ahead.
I love that you keep bringing it back to stories because, again, it's such a powerful way to communicate with people. Are you familiar with the story brand framework? It's
is that similar to the hero's journey?
Yeah. Yep. Same thing. Yeah.
So we do that a lot as sales engineers, and that's something we have to do in interviews. I've actually never had someone stand there silent as I'm telling a story like we just had, but it had an impact. I'm guessing it looked like it had an impact on you. So the more you tell stories, and there's a balance again of telling stories, and they have to be real stories. You can't just make a story up, right? I never advocate lying because you're gonna get found out. Like if you're okay morally to lie, you're gonna get found out. So there is no point in lying. But sharing a piece of information through story is much more powerful than just telling facts. Another example, if you wish, where we get asked a lot, like, how do you learn this new technology? And almost everybody I talk to, they tell me, well, if I were asked to learn a new technology, I would do this. And I stop them, like, hey, hold on right there. How have you learned a technology? Tell me that story. So we don't want to talk in hypotheticals. Because if you ask me how would you learn a technology, and I tell you in the future, it could imply that I've never learned a technology in my life.
Right.
So, and I'm talking in hypotheticals. I might do this, I might do that. No, tell me exactly how you learned a new technology. Show me that you can learn, that you have learned and you can learn. And let me know your thought process behind doing that. And by sharing a story, again, it's a little bit more engaging than I would go watch YouTube videos. I would go take a course. Tell me the story. Share that information. It relays the same information, but people remember stories. They don't remember facts.
100%. Yep, absolutely. Yeah. Well, let me take a very short break here and share with the listeners that teampipeline.us is where you can learn more about how we help medical device and other product engineering or manufacturing teams develop turnkey equipment, custom fixtures, and automated machines to characterize, inspect, assemble, manufacture, and perform verification testing on your devices. Ramzi, as I read that, I thought to myself, what I should really do here instead of this generic plug is tell a short story about how we've actually done this with one of our customers. That would be a lot more interesting, wouldn't it?
You gave me an amazing bio. I'm happy to give you a story later on.
All right. Well, we talked a little bit about how might one transition into the role of a sales engineer. I think I moved too quickly, though. I got all excited about it, hearing you talk about the wonderful world of sales engineering. How do I even get paid as a sales engineer? That's important.
Yeah. And again, it's different for every industry, every company. Generally speaking, sales engineers are paid mainly a big chunk of money as a base or salary. And in addition to that, they're paid commission or bonuses. I prefer the commissions. I always go after companies that would offer me base plus commission because bonus is kind of dependent on someone else to decide that, yeah, you deserve the bonus. Commission, you sell more, you make more. So I always prefer that. And again, if you're a pure salesperson, so a sales engineer but you do sales, the commission split could be like 50-50 or 60-40. Depends. So 60% of your total salary is base, 40 is commission, or 50-50. And for sales engineers, like pure software sales, pure sales, even if you're selling into a mechanical world, like whatever software, what's a good software that you use? So I can use it as an example instead of keep saying whatever software you use.
SolidWorks.
All right, let me write that down because I'm going to forget in 2 seconds. SolidWorks. All right. So I don't know how SolidWorks works. Oh, that's okay. But
it's a CAD program. It's kind of like AutoCAD.
Okay. All right. So for example, if you work for SolidWorks, you might want to go on their website, but it could be 80% of your salary is base, 20% is commission, or 70-30 could be a different split. But one thing that I want to add is if you go over your quota, you're usually assigned quota. So the commission part is based on quota that you're given from the lords above. If you go over quota, there's usually accelerators. So if
I like
you're,
the sound of this. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you get paid 1% of quota, usually 1% of commission for 1% of quota sold, you could get paid 2 or 3 times more after you hit your quota for every percent sold. Right? So if you achieve 110% of your quota, you're kind of making 130%, if my math is correct, for commission. So it's a good chunk of money, and I like it personally.
Yeah.
It's useful for my family.
Do you think that many sales engineers are primarily, what's the word I want to use here? Can't think of a better term. So money focused, like, is that the primary driver?
No. Usually most sales engineers I talk to, although they don't mind the money, we don't think it's evil. It's solution and technology focused. And the way I teach people to negotiate their salary is to whatever base they get should be able to be sufficient for them to live their lives. I don't want people to feel like they're under pressure to tell a fib, let one slide, not correct the salesperson just to make a deal. So negotiate the base salary to fit your needs. It should be higher than what you're making today anyways. And then the rest is gravy. The rest is things that like you're proud of. I call it the grandma test. I got it from a guy named Pat Flynn. So he calls it the grandma test. So if you can look your grandma in the eyes, and tell her what you did and she's proud of you, you're doing something well.
That's a good rule of thumb. All right.
Yeah. So
All right. Well, let's say that I've submitted resumes, I've gone through the interview process. Yay, they hired me, interviewed well. Now I'm just starting out, right? Brand new sales engineer. I need to go hunting. I need to find my leads. How can I start breaking into new accounts? Like, what are some best practices to do that?
There are a couple of different ways. So when we're talking sales engineer right now, we're talking like more sales focused than the sales engineer focus. Because sales engineers, the technology focus, don't have to go out and find new opportunities. It's good if they do, but that's not part of their job description. But let's talk about sales. A lot of times leads if the company is doing marketing well, leads come in. If the company is not doing marketing well, then you're going to have to figure out a way to find your quota. So a lot of research takes place. And when we reach out to customers for the first time, and many people have courses on cold calling and cold emails and all that. But the big thing is lead with value. Like, you're reaching out to them. You don't want to ask them for a favor to meet you. You want to provide them value so that they can see that, all right, this person is actually helpful and they can come and meet with me. And it doesn't happen with one email. It doesn't happen with 2 emails. It could be 3 emails, 4 emails. It could be LinkedIn connection. It could be them seeing your posts on LinkedIn and how you're helping other people. It's a lot of different touch points. And I personally just don't like, if someone reaches out to me out of the blue and says, hey, I get a lot of, because I'm in Canada, I get a lot of people reaching out to me saying, hey, I'm a financial planner, want to help you fix your stuff. Call me. It's like, nah. Right? It's like, you didn't add it. How do you know I don't have a financial planner? Did you do any research about me? Or is it the same generic email you're sending everybody else? And when I reached out to you to get on this podcast, I did customize my email to fit you, to make you want to talk to me.
You did.
And I showed my value to you, I hope. You still said yes, so I'm assuming you did.
Well, here we are, yeah.
Yeah. So you have to show value to them and think, again, being customer centric and not give up from the first time unless they tell you, please leave me alone. If they didn't say leave me alone, that's permission to keep kind of emailing them gently. So these are my thoughts around that.
Yeah. Something I've learned over the years is that this is a phrase that I think I've coined. I don't know. Maybe someone else has said it as well. But persistence beats brilliance. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be the smartest person in the room, but if you can be persistent and follow up with these people, aggressively, but respectfully, then that's going to, in the long run, lead to a lot more success than just being really, really smart.
I've heard consistency beats talent, but I'm going to use yours from now on.
All right. Yes.
I like that.
Got a convert.
I like that one. Yeah, I agree. Like, it's showing up, right? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Michael Jordan.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. Right.
But if you only take one shot, how are you going to get better? People think that as soon as they become something else, they're going to be brilliant at it. But if you think about it, we didn't learn how to walk until we were a year old, and we still looked like idiots. Like, I have my daughter; she's almost 2 years old, and I don't know how she doesn't fall 5 times a day. She doesn't look stable. But for some reason, as adults, when we start something new, whether it's a sport, whether it's a career, we expect to be great on day one. And if someone doesn't, I learned this trick on how to send emails, and no one responded to me, so I'm going to quit. But it takes time. It takes consistency. It takes practice. And it takes data. Like, you sent 100 emails. Which ones worked? Which ones didn't? Why did these work? Why didn't those ones?
Yeah. This gets into really kind of the tactical stuff here. But speaking of emails, one that I have found to be effective for me is when I email someone and it's kind of a sales email, if I don't get a response, I might respond, in a week or 2 or something like that. I'll follow up and I'll say, hey, you probably don't have time for this right now. Not a big deal. I'll follow up with you again in 2 weeks. It kind of puts the ball in my court as opposed to asking them for something. And I found that when I do this, hey, no problem if you don't have time for this right now. I get it. You're busy. I'll reach out again next week. They, not always, but much more often, they actually do respond because they're like, oh, okay, like he's actually tracking this and he is going to follow up. He's already done it once, so he'll probably just keep up until I respond. That's been helpful for me.
In contrast, I've worked with a sales engineer who actually goes up to the customer and says, so what, you're going to buy? And the response is, no, I'm not going to buy.
It is direct. That's pretty great. So what, you're going to buy? I might have to steal that one. Next trade show I'm at, I'll just stop people in the aisle. So what, you're going to buy?
You're going to buy? It's just have a t-shirt. It's like, so what, you're going to buy? That way you don't even have to say anything.
Even better, just point at the shirt. Oh, that's great. All right. So Ramzi, I went out and I met with the lead, and they had an opportunity for me. And so I shared with some of the solutions that we have, and I even gave them a quote, and they said, cost too much and it's going to take too long. So no. How do I respond to this?
Well, the biggest issue I see is when we give a quote, we didn't develop value ahead of time. Throughout the discovery call, throughout the selling, when we were talking about our products, we kind of have to highlight the value. We have to dig in, understand the problem really well, see how much it costs them. Whether it's, again, there's usually three things: time, money, and risk. Right? If it's going to break every 2 weeks, that's going to cost them money in the long run, even if it's cheaper. So we have to dig into it and understand what the business problem is. And when we're selling, we have to show the value of our product in comparison to what they have today. And when we provide the quote, if the quote is higher, that costs more than solving the problem, then obviously they're going to say no. But the quote is less, but in their mind it's higher. We have to fall back on whatever we did earlier to show them, like, hey, let's say my solution is 100K. You're paying around 50K every other month or every 6 months or whatever it is. So in 3 years, your ROI is whatever. I don't use ROI. I get them to think about that. Like, hey, it's costing you 600,000 in 3 years. My solution is 100K. It's an initial investment, but would that be beneficial to you? So there's that. We have to shift the way they're thinking about it. A lot of times, and that's the problem that I mentioned earlier, when a customer comes in and says, I want that product, and we provide a quote, they take that and go straight to the competitors, like, I want this product. And now, all right, how much discount can you give me?
Yeah.
Whoever gives me the highest discount wins.
Yeah.
Right. In terms of time, that's something we kind of had to discover early on. Like, when do you need it by? Why is it that deadline? Because a lot of times people throw out some timeline that's not really made in reality. Either they're trying to object ahead of time because they don't have a big pain, or they just don't know. And we have to dig in and understand why that timeline. If honestly, if I can't fit your timeline and you're telling me on day one that's your timeline and I can't get you to, and it's actually your timeline, it's not some fabricated number, then I'll qualify myself out and go on to the next opportunity. But if you're thinking that that's the timeline, but you don't really have a good reason. Something happened with me the other day. Yeah, someone said I needed something. I'm like, why are you asking for that thing? It's like, oh, no reason. I was like, okay, can we talk about your needs? So we kind of have to dig in and see why that's the timeline.
How about, so let's say that we kind of reflect on this, right? Customer said, costs too much, takes too long. So I go back and I'm thinking about the discovery process. Maybe I learned some things from reflection, lessons learned, right? I want to get more feedback from the customer now. How do you get feedback on a sale that you didn't win?
It has very much to do with the relationship I've built with them. So do they like me or do they not like me? If they don't like me, it's very hard for me to get feedback. Also, is it a one-time sale? Like, is there an opportunity in a year or half a year that we can work together? Because a lot of customers are repeat customers. You work with them once, you work with them twice. So it didn't work out this time. So Mr. Customer, I would really love to, or Mrs. Customer, I'd really love to understand where we fell short for you so we can actually fix it for next time for you. Again, it's all about them. I'm not getting feedback for myself so I can go sell the next customer. Like, if there's a chance that I can work with you in the future, I don't want to do the same mistakes that I did this time. So I want to be there for you.
That's a great way to frame it. Yeah. All right. How about, so you mentioned during the discovery process, we really want to understand what it costs the customer to not have this solution. And from there, we can reverse engineer, what the solution needs to look like in terms of cost and schedule and all that stuff. Let's say that the customer, they don't really have, or they don't know exactly what their budget is. And maybe they don't even know exactly what their scope is yet, but they're pressing you to give them a quote for something. And they want, a fixed price or within some very narrow margin of error, plus or minus 10% or something like that. How do you work with customers like that to make it successful for everyone?
I fire them.
Straight up, just you're out.
Well, like I've had these discussions where I have to tell the customer, like, hey, we're working on a partnership here. Right. Again, you have to build that relationship. You have to work with them to have them trust you. You have to build trust. You have to be able to trust them as well. And we have to work through that. And if they say, like, I want a price, I can give you a price. It won't be between 10 plus minus 10%, because we don't know the scope yet. It's a lot of times it's a discussion. They have to understand where you're coming from. It's not, they don't have all the power. That's a misconception about sales, especially good salespeople who have a big funnel and know they're going to be okay. The customer does not have all the power, and we can have that discussion. Listen, I know I want to work with you. I want to help you, and I know you want this as well. So if you want to work with us and if you want to work together in the future, we're going to have to figure out, we're going to have to take it slow. I can give you a price right now based on the information I know today. But if I understand you correctly, your information might change tomorrow. And I'm going to help you find out that information as we're going through as well. And we can develop and go as we're working together. They may say no. Again, not every sale, like I'm standing here talking as if I've won every deal. I have not. Right? I've lost a lot more deals than I've won, but the ones that I've won actually helped me achieve my goals. So it's not always a win. It's not always a good partnership. So you can't say no. It's okay.
Yeah, that's
I give permission.
A good point. Sometimes it won't be successful for everyone, and you just have to accept that there is some percentage of the time that'll be the case.
It's a lot of people say, like, get to the know faster. Try to get to know, because as soon as you get to know, you can move on with your life. They can move on with their life.
Yeah.
Now the balance is, don't force a no if there's a yes behind it. So know how to thread the line. Like, qualify yourself in or out, but do it right. Don't just qualify yourself out because you want to get to know.
All right. So I've had all this wonderful instruction from Ramzi. I've gone out. I've done my sales engineer bit. I've done this for about 10, 15 years now. Had a great career doing sales engineering. And it's gone so well for me that now I'm going to open up my own sales engineering business, and I'm going to hire a bunch of sales engineers to work with me and under me in my new company. What are the top sales engineers looking for when they join a company? Beyond
the financial, we're looking for great technology. We're looking for a company that would support us with good product. Right? The worst feeling in the world is going for a sales engineer to go and sell a crappy product. Right? We don't want that. We don't want to have to lie. Our credibility is all we have. So we want to keep that. And we want the flexibility. We want to be able to take care of our family. I want to go see my kids playing jiu-jitsu or basketball or football or soccer. Although they don't play basketball, I'm trying to change that. So we want the flexibility to do all these things in addition to getting paid well, being recognized. And our account manager partners, or if I'm doing everything, my manager, we have to be partners versus micromanaged, because everybody, sales and sales engineering is like everybody owning their own company, their own territory. And where the salesperson is the CEO, the sales engineer is the CTO. And if they're combined in one person, you're both. So we want the autonomy to be able to do that and not to be screwed over. I don't know if I'm allowed to say the word, the S word, but not to be messed
That S
over.
word is okay. Yeah.
Okay, not to be screwed over with quota, because every year you become a victim of your success as sales engineers and salespeople. So this year you made $1 million. Guess what? Your quota next year is 1.5. And you're still getting paid the same amount of commission. Your commission didn't increase. So that's a pitfall of sales engineering and sales in general. Did I answer your question?
Yep. Yes, you did. Yeah. Thank you for checking. All right. Let's see. Let me just one more question then, and then we'll wrap it up. Do you have a favorite sales training or book on sales?
So I'm going to divide that into two. There's a sales book and sales engineering book. And I actually have a YouTube video talking all about that. But the one I would recommend for sales is solution selling. That's the one I love the most. There's a lot of other challenger selling, spin selling. I find they all mean the same thing. They just change the terminology and say it's a new system. I might be wrong. And for sales engineers, I call that the SE Bible, which is called Mastering Technical Sales by John Kerr. And it's like a university book. And you can take it, read whichever chapter you want to get better in that. But if I'm only limited to 2, these are the 2 I'll pick. If I'm not, I'll be here till tomorrow. So I would recommend you limit me to 2.
Okay, fair enough. All right. Well, Ramzi, this has been awesome. Maybe just one more. I know I said one more, so I'm already, my credibility is shot here. I've lied on air. One more question. Final question. Maybe, if you had a billboard on which you could put something for sales engineers, and all the sales engineers in the world were going to drive past this billboard and see it, what would it be?
Own it. A lot of times sales engineers defer to salespeople in terms of their accounts, how they help their customers. So my recommendation is own it. You own the business as much as a salesperson. And if you're a salesperson, you already know that you own it. So you're good.
Nice. All right. Terrific. Well, Ramzi, thank you so much. I sure appreciate you being here with me today. How can people find you? WeTheSalesEngineers.com. I mentioned that I'll leave that questionnaire for the interview building questions that I use. So if people want to get it, they can go WeTheSalesEngineers.com/Aaron, 2 A's, right? Yes.
Yeah, okay. So they can go there and they can download that if they wish. But I'm Ramzi on LinkedIn, Ramzi Marjaba on LinkedIn. I wish I was like share. Ramzi on LinkedIn, Ramzi Marjaba. I did the same mistake. And Ramzi at WeTheSalesEngineers.com. Just reach out. I'm happy to chat and help.
Wonderful. Wonderful. All right, Ramzi, thank you so much again. I really appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I'm Aaron Monker, founder of Pipeline Design and Engineering. If you liked what you heard today, please share the episode. To learn how your team can leverage our team's expertise developing turnkey equipment, custom fixtures, and automated machines, and with product design, visit us at teampipeline.us. Thanks for listening.